My name is Matthew Tan. I lead the sales engineering and customer success team at Uipath. And it's my pleasure to be your trainer this morning. So as Keng Ho mentioned, this session will be primarily a hands-on session where we're going to sort of give you uh, maybe your first glimpse of if you have any RPA development experience, maybe some refresher on what it takes to perform RPA development. And of course, we'll be using UiPath to do robot development. And what I'm going to do is actually start off with a few slides that talks about RPA, right? We wanted to sort of give everyone a good understanding of what RPA is in case you're hearing about the terminology RPA for the first time, or if you haven't, or if you've heard of it before, maybe at least just give you a better understanding of the capabilities of RPA. And immediately after the few slides that I will present, we'll get straight to the hands-on activity. All right. So what is RPA? RPA is really about employing a software robot to help you with a lot of the manual and repetitive work that you do on your computer. A lot of us would like to think that we perform value creating work for our employers, right? If you work for a bank or a manufacturing services, IT, um, you know, a lot of the work that you do can be considered value creating. It adds value to the top line, adds value to the bottom line of the company. But unfortunately, if you're someone that works in front of a computer, on average, you probably spend 20% of your day with manual, routine, mundane work. And that's usually things like data entry, or you're preparing a report for your next management meeting, and you find yourself taking data from multiple spreadsheets, combining them into one, and then summarizing the data. Or it could be, you know, uh, looking up information from the internet. Maybe you're from marketing and you want to find out, how much your competitors are selling their products for, because obviously you want to make sure you're matching their pricing so that uh, you don't get beat because of price, right? So again, a lot of these activities are routine, manual, repetitive, and the idea of helping you um, eliminate a lot of those manual and repetitive work and have a personal assistant to help you with those day-to-day activities is something that appeals to a lot of people, right? And it's but basically by employing RPA to perform the same task that you do on your computer, but this time around done by a software robot. And since it's done by a software robot, typically the execution of that process is much faster and the accuracy will go up significantly as well. Because as humans, we get tired. If I ask you to do data entry at the last hour of your workday, chances are if you're already exhausted, you'll make mistakes, right? But a robot doesn't require rest. It doesn't require sleep. As long as, of course, you program that robot well, then it's going to be able to execute the process the same way that a person would have done it, right? And again, RPA, will allow us to automate a lot of the non-value creating work, the repetitive, the mundane, so that us humans can focus on the value creating work and the work that will require a lot of judgment, a lot of the work that will require our level of experience to make decisions, right? So again, that's really what RPA is. And in this workshop, we hope to actually help you to develop your first robot, right? And what can software robots do? So again, like I said, it can more or less do the same things that we do on our computer. So it can log into application, can move files around, read data from Excel, read data from PDF, read data from databases, go to a website and scrape some data off a website. So maybe, you're from a consumer goods company, right? Uh, and you want to find out, okay, how much is my competitor selling their products for in fair price? And maybe you create a robot that goes to fair price, scrapes, does a search for products of your competitor and scrapes the data from the fair price website. So again, robots have the ability to do that. Um, it has the ability to, of course, open your email, search for a specific attachment, save that attachment, and maybe open that attachment and perform some data entry based on the contents of that attachment. So again, more or less the same things that we humans do on our computer, a software robot can also do. And the good thing about RPA is um, it can be leveraged across multiple functions. I would say finance is typically the first department that embraces RPA, because if you're from finance, you know that uh, a lot of data entry work, a lot of routine work, record keeping work is done by the finance team. A lot of those processes are, ripe for automation. And the fact that, of course, the finance department's leader, the CFO, typically holds the buying power, right? So if the CFO sees value in RPA, then there's that ability to fund that project. But as I said, RPA can be applied across different functions. You can use it for supply chain, use it for IT, use it for HR and customer service. And there's also a lot of vertical applications to RPA. So if you're a bank, if you work for a bank, a lot of the uh, banks that are our customers are using UiPath to automate KYC or know your client functions, robots that will go out and search for information about a particular company, look for information about who owns the company, and then determine whether there's a high risk of taking in this particular company as a customer of the bank, right? Or whether there's low risk, therefore, the bank would be willing to offer its products and services to this company. So KYC is a very important process. And if you can do that process much faster, it means you can onboard customers much sooner, and hopefully they bank in their money much sooner. So for a bank, that's obviously a good thing. Or we also have insurance companies that might be employing, let's say, an army of underwriters and risk assessors and claims processing agents, uh, and the ability to make use of robots sometimes to perform some of the underwriting process, some of the claims assessment process helps insurance companies uh, deal with specific situations like what we are in now, where a lot of people are potentially claiming insurance uh, because of health reasons or medical reasons, right? So again, it's adding a lot of value, not just from a sort of support functions, but also from an operations perspective. And what process can you automate with RPA? You know, I would say it's typically those processes that are highly manual, very repetitive, the ones that are rules based, right? There's a certain way of performing a specific process. You should also look for processes that have low exception rates, right? So if you have a process where you're receiving input from a colleague in an Excel spreadsheet, and then maybe you have to take the data in an Excel spreadsheet and enter it into a system, but you end up having to call that colleague to validate whether the data is accurate, then maybe that's not something that you want to automate with RPA, because I would say that will have a high exception rate because you're having to validate the data. But of course, if you can validate the data by connecting to a system, then that's obviously something that RPA can perform as well, right? Or the robot can perform as well. It's always better to uh, automate a process that deals with um, standard electronic input, right? The input always looks the same, like an Excel spreadsheet or a PDF form, or you have to go to a website and the website gives you the data in a very structured manner, like in a tabular fashion. And those are the sort of processes that you want to automate, those that deal with standard readable electronic input. And you want to target processes that have a high volume, because if you automate that high volume process, then you achieve a much higher ROI compared to automating a low volume process, right? You also want to make sure that you're not automating a process that's about to change. Like Six Sigma Black Belt is about to go in and perform business process re-engineering or business process optimization. You preferably want to wait until the optimization, the standardization, and the re-engineering is complete before you perform automation. Similarly, you also don't want to automate a process that's currently undergoing an application upgrade. Like for example, if you're upgrading your SAP from R3 to S4 HANA, then maybe wait until that upgrade is complete before you apply any automation to your process, right? And of course, a process that will yield a lot of great benefit if automated, increase in accuracy, uh, better productivity for the team that's managing that process, and hopefully a process that's mature and stable. Actually, in other words, a process that's hopefully well documented and well understood, because you don't want to automate a process without first ensuring that you have a proper documentation of it, because or else you might be automating part of the process or automating what we call a happy path, right? If everything goes well, it goes like this. But actually, sometimes it doesn't go well, so it has to go flow a different way. So if a process is documented, hopefully it has the happy path as well as all the exception handling that needs to happen for that process, so that you're automating not just the happy path, but also the exception handling as well, right? I do see some questions in the Q&A panel, but I'll respond to them after I cover the slides. This is my last slide actually. So when we talk about RPA, we're really just talking about, you know, having a digital worker. It's kind of like automating what we do with our eyes and our hands, right? Looking at Excel and then typing the data into a system. That's what RPA typically automates. However, the RPA technology itself have dramatically matured, and us as a company that develops RPA, we've innovated as well to also create additional types of a digital workforce. We have digital readers that can look at structured and unstructured documents, right? And extract data and information out of it. Like, for example, you have supplier invoices. You scan them, and then someone manually enters the data into your ERP system. Now, with our capability of what we call document understanding, we can also use a robot to extract data out of those semi-structured documents like an invoice. It can read invoice date, invoice number, supplier name, the line items of the invoice, even though invoices would look different. Because if you have, let's say, Fair Price as a supplier and Giant as a supplier, Cold Storage as a supplier, their invoices would look very different, right? Uh, and the ability for robots now to you know look at an invoice and find where the invoice date is, the invoice number is, the way we humans do it, that particular capability has matured significantly. We're also talking about having digital talkers, robots that interact with customers via platforms like chatbots or via text, via voice, and have the ability to provide services via that digital talker. So I'll give you an example. Singtel has a chatbot named Shirley. DBS has its own chatbot. In fact, if you a lot of these companies want to employ chatbots because it eliminates the need for people to call in. Because if you call in, there's a significant cost to supporting you via phone, as opposed to maybe the much lower cost of supporting you via chatbot. So a lot of these companies are now trying to, get customers to execute transactions even just via chatbot. And what typically happens is you say, you signify your intent to the chatbot. Let's say I want to, upgrade my plan. How much does this particular plan cost monthly? And maybe the chatbot can respond to you by providing you some basic information. And then if you want to proceed, maybe the chatbot then gets a confirmation, do you really want to upgrade? And then maybe make a few validation, like what's your date of birth, what's your zip code, etc. Right? And then, or postal code. And then uh, after it does the validation, get a confirmation, do you really want to upgrade to this plan? And then what happens is it communicates to an RPA robot to then perform a lot of the changes that needs to be made on the CRM system, right? So again, these are sort of innovations that we're putting in place. And last is, of course, a digital thinker, uh, basically making use of AI to help in terms of some of the decision making that typically will require a human. But by analyzing the sort of decisions that a person has made for the past year, the past 2 years, and learning from the pattern, right? We can now rely on a machine to make decisions on our behalf, right? Because it has learned through transfer learning, meaning some of the knowledge that we have, we've transferred to the machine. Like in the case of, let's say, claims assessment in insurance, right? If you get a machine to look at all the past claims that have been made, looking at different factors like, the gender, the age, the lifestyle of the person, whether this person is a smoker or not, whether this person drinks or not, etc., etc., right? Um, then an assessor would typically make decisions based on all these factors. So by feeding the data to the machine of previous assessments that were made by that person or by that team, we can then create sort of a predictive capability using AI, given a new claim that's being made, should it be approved or rejected? So again, these are innovations that we're seeing not just from UiPath, but also from our peers in the industry. And this is the sort of digital workforce that are now being developed to help us automate more and more complex processes. Okay. All right, so that's the end of the slides. I do see a couple of questions in Q&A which I want to address. Now many websites they ask, "Are you human?" Those are sites where RPA can't get in, or is there a way to get in even though? So this question came from Balaji. So Balaji, very good point. Actually, a lot of websites now would require you to do the CAPTCHA or click all the image that has a traffic light, right? So I would say the whole point of having the CAPTCHA and having to click all the traffic light is to prevent a robot. So you're right. It actually, those are a lot of those websites are very, very difficult to automate because how do I teach the robot to understand what traffic light is? Of course, there are technologies that will be able to do that, but maybe it sometimes it doesn't become, your ROI is not so good because you have to spend money to get those technology just for a robot to understand what a traffic light is, right? And I wouldn't say that that's gonna to be an automation that's gonna to be very highly reliable. So to be able to automate processes that require you to log into website where there's a challenge like a CAPTCHA, we typically employ what we call attended automation, where a human triggers the automation to run. And when it gets to a point where the website is challenging the user, whether it's a robot or human, to do a CAPTCHA, the human then goes and performs the filling out of the CAPTCHA on behalf of on behalf of the robot. And once the human has entered the captcha and you're already logged into the application, the robot then takes over and performs the rest of the work. So you can still automate it, but it will be sort of human robot collaborating to execute that process. So I hope I answered that question, Balaji. Nitesh asked, sample bots that are available in the area of supply chain. So yeah, we do have a lot of companies in the logistics in manufacturing that are using our solution for automating some of their processes in areas like inventory management, in areas like invoice processing, purchase order management, sales order management. So again, as long as your process uh, is repetitive and you tend to, you know, enter a lot of data on your computer based on data from Excel, based on data from purchase orders or bill of lading documents, then we can automate those process. Okay. So hopefully I answered your question, Nitesh. The difference between from Mohit, difference between RPA and test automation. Uh, I think there's a similarity between RPA and test automation wherein we're automating a lot of UI activities. Click here, type data here, select from this drop down, tick this tick box. Both RPA and test automation perform very similar functions, but their applicability is different. RPA is typically to automate a process that people are doing, and RPA is automating uh, processes that involve applications in production, right? These are real work that's being done, and RPA is automating it. Test automation primarily is automating uh, the execution of transactions in a test environment. And the purpose of it is to validate whether the application is working, whether all the functionality is proper, and whether the performance of the application is good. But it's typically against a test environment and not automating real people's work. Well, that actually not it's still automating real people's work, but it's automating the testing activity of your quality assurance team, right? As opposed to automating the work of a finance person, an HR person, a supply chain person, and so on. All right. Okay. One last question before we move on. Have you encountered any case of using RPA to improve IT security of an organization? Yeah. For example, server hardening, AD account creation. So, Chia, yes, definitely. We have automated a lot of IT support functions, like what you mentioned, server hardening and AD account creation. In fact, we have activity packs for Active Directory, for VMware, for Citrix, for AWS, for Microsoft Azure, right? We've developed out of the box capability to help you automate some of the IT related functions that you have to perform across all these technologies. So definitely do consider automating a lot of the IT support processes. So if you go to your IT service management system, your help desk system, just go and look for what are the top 10 most requested IT services. Chances are you'll get a lot of ROI from automating those processes. So I'm sure number one will be password reset, right? Which is something that some of our customers have already automated using RPA. Yeah, so I hope I answered that question. All right. I think we should move on now to our hands-on activity. Hopefully, uh, you're all very eager to get started with this. All right. So one of the things that I asked everyone to do was to install UiPath Studio, right? And of course, make sure you have Google Chrome as well as Microsoft Office as well running on your computer. So hopefully everyone has prepared those prerequisites. And if you've already installed UiPath Studio, you should be seeing this, right? When you launch, you have the ability to either open a project or create a new one. When you launch UiPath Studio, you should be seeing this, right? But before we get started with the hands-on proper, I'd like to describe first what process we're automating, all right? So let's say on a daily basis, I would receive orders in this particular format. There's an Excel spreadsheet called orders.xlsx, and it's actually, this is what it looks like, right? I can see that there's an order number, customer name, the total amount, and the approved discount, right? And then for each of these orders, there's a corresponding Excel. So order number one has a corresponding Excel. And if I open that up, it contains the actual set of products and the required quantity and the unit price, right? As you can see here. And what I need to do as the order processing person is to enter all these data into my application. So of course I need to type, let's say 00001, the customer name, whatever, right? The total amount, maybe this, and then approved discount is 15%, something like that. And then for each of the products that's being ordered, I have to type in 200, then cement, let's say $100, something like that. And then I enter all the products, right? And then once I'm done entering all the products in that Excel, I click on submit. Right? So as you can see, this is a very repetitive and manual activity, right? So qualifies for RPA. That's one of the factors. Is it high volume? So let's say maybe I have to process, you know, 200 orders a day. So then definitely that's a high volume process, very repetitive. Uh, Deals with electronic input. Yes, I'm receiving an Excel spreadsheet with the proper formatting that allows me to then understand what the input to my process is, and then use the data to then perform my activity, which is in this case order entry, right? So again, qualifies for RPA, ticks a lot of the boxes in the slide that I showed you earlier, right? And it's a well understood process. It's all done the same way every day. And hopefully this process is documented. Yeah, we've documented it. So yeah, now I want to automate this process. And that's what we're going to do today, which is to automate this particular process of entering data into the order entry system. So sorry, I got disconnected there for a bit. All right, so let's do that. Let's automate this process. But before we do that, let's make sure you're all set to get started with the hands-on lab. So if you haven't launched Studio, make sure you launch it. You should find it in your program group under the letter U, of course, and you should find Studio and just make sure you launch it, right? Once it's launched, you should see it, sorry, you should be here, right? Sorry, I apologize. I accidentally clicked. All right, so let me go back there. Yeah, you should be here, right? And if you're seeing Studio instead of Studio X, I'd like you to make sure you're using the right profile. So go to Settings, go to License and Profile, and then click on View or Change Profile. I'd like you to make sure that you're using Studio X, right? So our labs will depend on you using Studio X. So make sure that's the profile you select. So if you're not seeing Studio X and the color of the side is blue as opposed to blue green, yeah, a bright blue instead of blue green, then that means you're on the Studio profile. So again, make sure you go to Settings, License and Profile, View or Change Profile, and select Studio X. Okay, And when you select Studio X, it will require you to restart uh, Studio. And then once it restarts, it should bring you to the Studio X user interface. Okay, so that's one thing that you need to make sure of. The other thing that I'd like you to make sure of is that you've installed the UiPath Chrome extension, because to automate uh, a process that requires you to launch Chrome, you need to make sure that the UiPath extension is installed, right? So you'll see here I have a UiPath logo on my Chrome browser, because that shows me that the extension is installed, right? If you don't have it installed just yet, you can go to Tools, right? The Tools section here, and click on this particular icon, the Chrome icon. And what happens is it shows you, do you want to continue installing, right? And then just say OK. And then what it does is to restart your Chrome. And when you relaunch Chrome, it should then uh, prompt you to enable or disable the extension. Make sure you enable it, right? Okay, so you should see the UiPath logo. If you feel that you've already installed it, but the UiPath logo is not visible, just go to click on the three dots here, and then go to settings. Actually, yeah, settings, and you should see extensions down here, right? And just make sure the UiPath web automation extension is enabled. The toggle is on the right. That shows you that your extension has been enabled. Okay. All right. So let's get started with the lab exercise. So I'd like you to um, go to this website, right? This is the order entry form. And what I'll do, instead of you copying the URL from the screen, I'd put it in the chat window. Yeah. Okay. So if you look at the chat window on Zoom, right? You should see the URL there. And of course, you need a copy of the Excel spreadsheet as well, right? So make sure you also download the Excel spreadsheet from this URL. So again, I'll put it in the chat window. Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm only sending it to panelists. So I'll make sure I send it to all the attendees. Yeah, just give me 1 second. Okay. Okay. So I have pasted 2 URLs on the chat window. So make sure you open the order entry form, as well as download the Excel file from this link. So the Excel file, actually, I've zipped them up. So make sure you uncompress them. So you'll end up having, let's say, sorry, you'll end up having the sales order .zip, right? And I'd like you to do an extract all and extract the contents into your, in this case, your downloads directory, right? And you should end up having a folder that contains orders.xlsx and a details subfolder that contains three more Excel files. So these are the Excel files that we will work with um, in to develop this automation. Okay, I'll give you guys maybe another 30 seconds to complete that before we move on. Yeah. So to those of you who are, when you launch Studio, it requires you to log in. Make sure you create an account at cloud.uipath.com, right? Register for an account. Okay. All right. Good. So now, hopefully, everyone managed to launch the order entry form, and everyone has a copy of the Excel files, the sales order Excel files, right? So again, make sure you've launched Studio X, right? And you're in this page maybe sort of the when you launch Studio X, you should be seeing this, right? And let's all create a new project, right? So select blank task under new project. And then what we'll name this as is, let's say sales order entry automation, right? You can name it whatever you want. In terms of the location of that project, usually by default, it will put it inside your My Documents folder / UiPath. So you don't have to change this if you're okay to save your projects in your My Documents folder, right? Anyway, it saves everything under a subfolder called UiPath. So it will be quite neat. It will not, mess up your My Documents folder. And you can also opt to put in a proper description if you want, although that's not really optional. That's really optional, right? Something like this. So once you're ready, click create. So it should, do this, restoring dependencies and preparing your development environment for RPA development, right? So give it a few seconds. All right. So as you can see there, we have currently a blank canvas, right? Because we haven't really automated anything yet, hence our process canvas is empty. And what we need to do now is basically to look at the panel on the left and make use of any activity that will allow us to execute the same steps that we need to execute if we were to perform this process manually, right? So things like launching an application, opening an Excel file, reading the Excel file, entering the data, all of these activities will be available on the left panel here. And then all we have to do is drag and drop it to the middle, which is our process flow canvas. Okay. All right. So the first step in our process is really to launch Chrome, right? And make sure we go to this particular URL, right? So hopefully everyone's Chrome browser is already pointing to this particular URL. And what I'd like you to do is just highlight the URL and copy, right? Highlight the whole thing and copy because we'll need that URL. Okay. Go back to UiPath Studio X. And what I'd like you to do is look for the activity called use application / browser. I'm not sure if the arrangement of the activity should be similar to mine, but in case it's not, you could actually use the search activity text box here, use application. right? You can do a search, and as you're typing, it's filtering those that meet your search criteria, right? But if yours is like mine, then use application slash browser should be right on top. I'd like you to drag and drop that particular activity. Okay. So now you should have your first activity in your process flow canvas, and it's called use application slash browser. So basically, what we need to do is tell Studio X what application we want to automate. Okay. And all you have to do is click on this, on this part of the activity, the actual text that says indicate application to automate. Just click it. When you click it, Studio X goes away. It's entering what we call selection mode at the moment, where you can select the specific application that you want to automate. And all you have to do is point it at your Google Chrome browser that has the order form uh, showing. Click that. And now Studio X comes back and tells us, okay, the application that you want to use is Google Chrome, and the URL that you want to go to is this URL, right? So that's all we've done so far, which is to open up the browser and go to that particular URL. That's the only activity we have so far. Yeah. So hopefully everyone's done that properly. Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A or the chat window, right? Okay, so now we've launched uh, the browser, right? And then went to that particular URL. The next step for us is to actually open up the Excel spreadsheet, right? So we need to read the Excel because we need to enter data based on the data in Excel. So to do that, you'll also notice that there's a use Excel file activity, right? Again, if you want, you can actually search for use Excel, and you'll immediately find that particular activity. So drag and drop use Excel here. Okay. So make sure the use Excel file is inside the box of the use browser, right? So which means that all the activities that we add is in the context of the Excel file and in the context of the browser application as well. Okay. All right. So you'll see here the use Excel file activity now added to our process flow canvas. And what we can do is search for orders.xlsx, right? The first file that we want to open. And you should go to your downloads folder. You should find the sales order directory that now contains orders.xlsx. Right, so all you have to do is open that particular file. All right. And what we can do is also update the reference, meaning whenever I want to refer to that Excel, I'll refer to it as orders. Okay. Hopefully everyone's following. Again, open up, browse for that orders.xlsx file, right? By clicking here and then navigating to your downloads folder, if that's where you place the zip file that you downloaded just now, and select orders.xlsx. Okay. And then change the reference to orders. Okay. And the tick box you can leave as default, although the reality is we don't need to make changes to the orders.xlsx. I mean, we don't need to create it because it already exists. At least we can assume that it will exist, right? So you can untick them if you want, but yeah, you can leave the defaults as well. But just take note that you have those options, right? Whether you want to change anything that data that you might add to that Excel or not, or if you want to create orders that XLSX if it doesn't exist. Okay, you have those options. All right, so what we need to do now is basically, as you saw earlier, orders that XLSX has multiple rows, right? It's got, in this case, 3 order items. Maybe tomorrow, the Excel file I receive will have 10 orders. Maybe the following day, 50 orders. So we need to be able to loop through each of the rows in the Excel so that we can automate the data entry for every row in the Excel. So for that, what we need is an activity we call a for each row activity. So this for each row activity, uh, again, is something that you'll find in the activities panel on the left, right? So if I clear this, you could also just click Excel on the left side here, select Excel, right? And then this will allow you to focus purely on the set of Excel activities, right? So you'll see here a for each Excel row activity, right? So again, if you find it hard to look for a specific activity, all you have to do is type it in for each Excel row, right? So you'll see that there. Okay, drag and drop the for each Excel row activity. Okay, so now you should see 3 activities so far: your use browser Chrome, use Excel file, and for each Excel row. Okay, so what we need to do here is just relabel some of this. So let's say for each order, right? Because every row is an order, right? In the range, sheet 1. Basically, what we're saying here is we want to, for each row in the sheet 1 worksheet of the orders Excel. Orders Excel is, again, the reference that we created earlier. And orders point to this actual file called orders.xlsx. And sheet 1 corresponds to the worksheet name, as you can see here. So Studio X automatically pulled out the name of the worksheet. Okay? So orders and order are case sensitive. So make sure that when you type them in as lowercase, later on when you're using the references, make sure you're also using the right case. Yeah, if it's all lowercase or mix of uppercase and lowercase, you need to pay attention to them. They are case sensitive. Okay. All right. So anyway, so for each order in orders, it is sheet 1, we want to perform a few activities. If you look at orders XLSX, again, it has a header, meaning the first line or is actually column names. So we need to make that known as well to Studio X. Tick, right? Make sure you tick has headers because this, Excel sheet indeed has headers. Okay, so now what is the function of for each? I think majority of you come with an IT background, but it's basically looping through each row in the Excel and you're performing the same set of activities across each row in the Excel. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is, of course, make sure that our browser, this one, as it repeats through, um, sorry, as it repeats through the activities, will always start with the correct URL. Yeah. So what we need to do is if you go to app web or basically just show all as well, you can do a search for go to URL, right? Make sure you're either in show all or app web when you type the search, because if you're searching for go to URL within the context of Excel, of course you won't find it, right? Because there's no going to a URL on Excel, but there's going to URL when it comes to a browser or app or web. So you have the go to URL activity, just drag and drop it here, okay? And remember, I asked you to copy the URL earlier, so you can just right click or click and then paste from clipboard. Yeah, actually, no, I don't want to do that. Uh, Basically, you just paste that here, okay? So again, what you need to do is click on the plus, say text, and then paste the URL. And you should see it like this as well. Again, make sure you hit plus, text, and then type in. Because, sorry, because when you say paste from clipboard, if your clipboard contains a different text at that point in time, then that's the text that it will use to as the URL. So actually, in this case, we're hard coding the URL because the hard URL hopefully will not change. It stays the same, right? Again, and if it does change, you need to come back to your to Studio X and make that update of the URL. So again, click plus, select text, and then paste the URL there. So the first thing it does is to go to a specific URL. All right. So you'll eventually find out that as you're building your process flow becomes longer and longer, and sometimes becomes harder to read because now you have to keep scrolling up and down your process flow to find out exactly what your robot is going to do, or what activities your robot is going to execute. So sometimes it's actually quite nice to put a little bit of structure when you're developing your process. So one of the things that we could use is the group, what we call the group activity. The group activity is basically just to group stuff together, group a series of activities under one group. So I'd like you to um, drag and drop a group underneath the go to URL, right? In fact, drag and drop both, drag and drop two of them, right? So what we'll do here is basically you can double click on the label group and update it. So for this, in this case, what we'll do is enter order details. That's the name of the first group. And the name of the second group will be enter product list, right? So remember, we have to enter the order details and then enter the product list. So what I'm doing here is basically just making it nicer and more organized. So all the activities that we need for entering the order details will be here, and all the activities we need to enter the product list will be here. And you'll find out in a bit why it makes sense to have this group added to our process flow. Okay, so hopefully everyone's able to follow so far, right? We have the use browser Chrome activity pointing to that URL. We have the use Excel file where we've indicated the orders that XLSX file, change the reference to orders. We have the for each Excel row activity for each order in the range order sheet one. Basically, we're taking all the data from sheet one, and we have indicated that this particular sheet has headers. We have the go to URL just to reset our browser to make sure we're always in that particular page. And then uh, we've added two groups, enter order details, and we've renamed them to enter order details and enter product list. Okay, so that's where we are so far. Okay, next step. What do we need to do to enter order details? We need to type, right? We need to type across these three fields, and we need to perform a drop-down selection, right? As you can see here. So how do we automate that process? Again, make sure Chrome is up and it's in the order entry page. And then make sure that Chrome is right behind Studio X, and you will understand why. Yeah. So the first activity that we need to do is a type into activity. So do a search for type into, and you should find the type into activity, right? Drag and drop type into, right, into your process flow. And notice here that we have indicate target on screen, right? It's the ability again to perform something similar to what we've done earlier, which is to select Chrome when we were asked which application you want to automate. In this case, which field do you want to type into? So all you have to do is click indicate target on screen. Studio X goes away, and now you're in selection mode again, right? As you move your mouse around in the browser, you're able to point at the order number field. Okay, and make sure you click on order number, and then it highlights the anchor as well, which is the label of the field, and then click confirm. Okay, so when you did that earlier, let's say you selected indicate target on screen, but however, it was a PowerPoint slide that was showing, like for example, like this, or something else was showing. Oh, actually, oh yeah, sorry. It will not happen to you because, sorry, we're in the context of the browser, so it will always bring up the application. But anyway, if you click on the wrong thing, like instead of order number, you click on unit price, right? Let's say you did that accidentally. What you can do is go back to type into. You'll see this button with three parallel lines. You can always indicate target on screen again, and now select the right uh, field, hit confirm, right? Notice that it also adds a screenshot. Obviously, it's a good for documentation purposes. Actually, the side effect of automating is now you have a good documentation of that process. So what do we need to type here under order number? Notice that there's a plus sign under uh, type this field. We need to type the order number, the value in the order number column of the Excel, right? And now what we've done here is say, enter the value of the under the order number column for the current row that we're processing. So if it's on the first row, then it will enter 00001 for order number. Okay. So now what we need to do is drag and drop two more type into activities. So what you can do is go ahead and drag and drop two more. The reason for that is because we have a customer name and total price or total amount to enter as well. So again, the second type into activity will have indicate target on screen. Go ahead and click that and select the customer name field. It will highlight it. Click confirm. Right? And then what do we need to type into customer name field? It will be the value under the customer name column from our Excel sheet. Okay. And then the third type into activity, we select total order amount, confirm. And then what do we need to type here? It's the value in the total order amount column in our worksheet. It's just so happened that the name of the field, it corresponds exactly to the column name in the Excel, yeah. But if that's different, then you obviously need to make sure you select the right column name. Okay. And then you'll notice that this is not a text field. It's actually a drop down. Okay. So we actually have a different activity for selecting an item in the drop down, which is called select item. So if you do a search for the activity called select item, you'll find it. Make sure you select item, not the select menu item. That's only for SAP. Select item, drag and drop that to the position under the type into total order. Okay. Similarly, it will have indicate target on screen. Click that, and now you can select the drop down. Okay. Click confirm, and you're able to indicate what you want to select, which is the approved discount, the value in the approved discount column. All right. So far, what we've automated is the process of entering the data for the first four fields, right? That's typing in the order details. Okay, I'll pause here because there are some questions. So, will the recording of this session be available? Yes, we are recording this session, and you will be able to get the recording from the organizers from SCS and maybe from Camilla and her team. I am getting column names as A, B, C, D as order. Okay, so you're saying when you select orders A, B, C, D, as instead of order number, customer name, total order. So maybe what you need to do is just make sure you selected uh, sheet one here, right? And then you've ticked has headers. Okay, make sure you tick has headers. So Karen asks, can I check with whether, I guess, check whether possible to do string expression trim? Yes, you do have the ability to enter trim functions by using advanced editor. You have the ability to, as you can see now, it's actually translated that to this, and you can have trim functions as well. So you can have you know Visual Basic basically um, use Visual Basic functions to be able to manipulate strings. It's just that yeah, it's not um, as you know, Studio X, uh, we aim to make it easy to use. That's why to for more advanced functions, we sort of have hidden it away in advanced editor. But you have the ability to perform string manipulation. So Balaji, are you asking me to redo the whole thing? Everything for each row? Aren't you able to just look at my screen now and follow? Okay, so I'll leave this up for now. Um, I think we've been going for about an hour 15 minutes. So it might be a good time to take a quick break. Let's take a 5-minute break. So to those of you who are able to follow along and are quite okay with what we've done so far, you can take that 5 minutes. For those that are maybe falling behind a little bit, uh, you know, um, let me know how I can help you. Okay, yeah, 5-minute break. Let's come back at 10:20. Okay, so there's a question from Han Seng C. How do you activate the advanced editor? You click on the plus sign and open in advanced editor. Okay. Nitesh, what node after go to URL? What do you mean what node after go to URL? Oh, this one? This is a group. So look for the activity called group, drag and drop, and then you have the ability to rename. In this case, I enter order details. And then all the type into activity will be inside there. Okay. I'll delete this since I don't need it. But that's, yeah, this enter order details is a group. Okay, hopefully, Nitesh, I answered your question. Okay, well, hopefully, Nitesh, you're able to catch up. RPA only in Google Chrome. How about Microsoft Edge or Firefox or other browsers? Actually, we support all of the major browsers in the market today. Um, and I can show you which ones we support. If you go to Home and then Tools, you'll see here we support the legacy Edge, meaning the Edge that I think Microsoft was has installed by default on Windows, as well as the new Edge. So we support both, and we also support Firefox. Okay, so you just need to install the extensions. For Internet Explorer, although less and less people are using Internet Explorer, we all actually still support it, and you don't need an extension actually for Internet Explorer. So if you went here to the tool section, and now how do I go back to my process flow? Just click on the back arrow here. Yeah, you'll go back to your process flow. Okay. Naveen has a question. Does runtime have dependency on object IDs from HTML components? So actually, yes, we make use of the IDs of the elements. to identify where to type, because in case, because we don't use uh, pixel position to identify where order number is. In fact, my form could be like this and hidden away like this, and it's still going to be able to type data into the form, right? Because we're not using pixel position on the screen. We identify the ID of this particular text box element, and we also relate it to the label that's right next to the text box. So we have various ways of finding the right field to type into. We actually employ a selector base, which is the ID of this field, and what we call anchor based, the field that's right next to the label order number. And we even do fuzzy logic so that if someone tomorrow changes the label to order no dot, we can still find that particular field using fuzzy logic. Yeah, so we employ a lot of techniques to make sure that your automation will still continue to work despite maybe some surface level changes on the application. Okay, hopefully I answered your question, Naveen. So yeah, KL Tan has a question. If there's a need to log in, how will the credentials be stored in UiPath? So we actually have, hang on a second. Yeah, this one, get username and password. The actual username and password is stored in your Windows Credential Vault. Yeah, right here. So if you happen to add Windows credential by using this activity, get username and password, it's actually stored in your Windows. It's not stored in the project file itself. So which means that if you run your automation and your credentials exist on your machine, you're able to log in. But if you take this automation, run it on a different machine, since that machine doesn't have the credential, then yeah, the automation will not work. So in a way, you still have control over where the automation gets executed and who has access to those credentials, because it's on your machine. It's on the Windows Credential Manager. It's not stored in the project itself. For more enterprise-wide deployment, we can also store the credentials in what we call our orchestrator. It's a component of the UiPath platform where we can store all the credentials securely. Or if your company has a password vault, privilege access management system like CyberArk, we can also integrate with CyberArk. Okay. All right. Hopefully everyone's back. I'll get to the other questions in a bit, right? But for now, let's continue on with building our automation, right? So I think the reason why I asked you to add groups just now is because of this functionality. Now I'm able to collapse the four actions that I had inside the enter order details. I can collapse and it's out of the way. Now my workflow looks better and it's more neat, right? So again, that's the reason why I asked you guys to add in the group just now. So I think we're done with entering, like I said, data in these four fields. Now it's time to move forward to entering data for product list. What's challenging with this is we need to open another Excel spreadsheet, right? As you know, for order number one, there is a corresponding Excel spreadsheet. But how do we know which spreadsheet to open? It's based on the order number. So the order number, the name of the order number is the file name of the file that you need to open, right? But what makes it difficult is how do we determine what we would ask our robot to open. So let's do this. What we need to do now is bring in another use Excel file activity, right? Because we need to open another Excel. Okay, so to do that, let's bring in a use Excel file activity. Make sure you bring it into under the group enter product list. Okay, if you make a mistake, don't worry, just highlight that activity, click delete. You can always drag and drop at the right place. Or you can actually move it around as well, but sometimes it's easier, especially I haven't filled out anything. It's easier to just delete it and drag and drop it again. All right, so for this particular activity, let's first try and open one of the Excel files. Like I said, go to your sales order directory under details. This is the Excel that contains the quantity of the products that's part of that order, right? As you can see there. However, if we leave it like this, it's going to open the same file over and over, isn't it? It's not going to open the right file based on the order number. So what we need to do is actually replace this part of this string 00001 to the order number. So to do that, all you have to do is once you've already opened the or browse for this particular file, all you have to do is double click, right? And make sure you highlight 00001. Don't highlight the dot, don't highlight the slash, just the exact file name without the extension, yeah? Highlight 00001, click on the plus sign here, and I want to use the value in the order number column. And it will replace that particular hard-coded string of 00001 to the order number that we're processing at the current row. Okay, and again, remember we're looping, so we're going to be processing each and every row in the orders.xlsx, and what we need to do is take the value of the current order number so that we can open the correct Excel file. Okay, again, I'll repeat for those of you that have already done it. You don't have to do anything, but what I'll do is just repeat that step for to those that were not able to follow. Again, browse for 00001, right? This is what your use Excel file will look like. However, like I said, 00001 is hard coded. How do we make sure that it's opening the right Excel file for a given order? So what you need to do is double click on this field, highlight 00001, click on the plus sign, and select order number under order. And this will automatically be replaced with the value of the order number for the current row that we're processing, so that this particular activity of use Excel file is opening the right file. Okay. So we can change the reference to products because this Excel file that we're opening contains a list of products. And I want us to make it easier for us. So remember, this particular use Excel file is now opening, is not, did not open any specific file because it's using a variable. So in this case, we need to use a template file to continue our work. Basically, the template file serves as a working copy while we're doing development, but during actual execution, it's going to use the actual file that's opened by the robot, which is the correct Excel file corresponding to that order. But in this case, we need to use a template file because we're going to automate additional steps, right? So please select 001 again. But this particular 001 only currently serves as a template file so that we can continue the rest of our activities. Okay. All right. So what's next? So the next thing that we need to do is basically perform uh, the data entry, right? So similar to what we had earlier, since the Excel file, I'll open it up, right, contains multiple rows of products, we again need a for each row activity. Okay, so let's bring in for each Excel row, drag and drop for each Excel row into our process flow canvas under within the use Excel file. Okay, and then for each product, in this case, in the range products, sheet 1. Again, why is it sheet 1? Because the sheet name is sheet 1. Okay, and this sheet has headers as well. Okay, notice this references, the way I'm naming them is based on what's contained in the Excel, right? The Excel contains products. So I refer to that Excel sheet as products. And for each product, in products, right? So that's how, I'm naming all of these references. So make it descriptive. In fact, you can even have spaces that in there. It doesn't have to be like one word. If you want to make it more descriptive, yeah, put in a phrase instead of a word. But yeah, it's something that make sure it's descriptive enough. All right, so for each Excel row, again, we need to do data entry, right? Our application has quantity, product, and unit price. Again, type into activities. So let's do that. Again, search for the type into activity. Drag and drop 3 of them because there are 3 fields to type in. Okay. And hopefully your muscle memory is already better. So you know what to do already. Indicate target on screen. Select quantity field. Click confirm. And then what to type. It's product quantity. The current row and the value in the quantity column. Right? Type into the second field, which is product. What to type. Current row, the value in the product column. Okay. And lastly, unit price. Click confirm. What to type. The current row, the value in the unit price column. Okay. So those are the 3 type into activities inside our for each Excel row loop. Yeah. So I'll leave that there for a few seconds so that you guys can can follow, can catch up. Okay. So hopefully you're all able to follow. So what's the next step? In this case, we need to uh, click on add item, right? So let's do that. Click on add item. That's what we call a click activity. Bring it down here. Indicate on screen. Select the add item activity. Then click confirm. So you'll notice there that now we have a new activity in our workflow, which is a click activity. It will click. There's even options here, whether it's a single click or a double click. In this case, it's a single click. It's a button on the web page. And if you want, you can also do a right click. Don't know when you will use a middle click. I haven't seen a mouse that has a middle click anymore, but yeah, that option's available in case you have an application that requires a middle click. But yeah, it's another activity. But there's a problem here, and I'll tell you why. Let's say I have two products in my, so I'll just put in some random values here, yeah? Let's say I have two products in my Excel. So let's say cement is one of them for a unit price of 100, and then I click add item, and then sand 200. Since there are two rows, how many times I click add item? I also click twice. So I click again. But then that's actually the end of my form filling. But then if I click submit, it's not going to allow me because the third row is empty, right? So we actually need to figure out whether we're already typing the last row in the Excel before deciding to click add item. Okay? So here's where some of the more advanced functionality comes in, because obviously so far we've drag and drop activity, but there's no condition handling. So I wanted to introduce the concept of if this, then that, right? If we're not on the last row, click add item. But if we're already in the last row, don't click add item anymore. So actually, before we add that, I'd like to kind of explain what I'm referring to, right? So notice here that we have, let's say we have this Excel sheet, 3 rows, right? So what is the row count? So in this case, row count is 3, right? Let me just type it down. Row count is equal to 3, right? However, when we're talking about row index, when we talk about row index, this is what this particular row index corresponds to, right? So the row index of the first row is 0. The row index of the second row is 1. The row index of the third is 2, and so on. In short, the row index number for each of the data rows start at 0. So how do we know we're typing in the last row already? So basically row count minus 1 na. If row count minus 1 is greater than row index, it means we've already reached the end of the row, right? So again, let me just type that in. We can have this condition, row count minus 1 greater than row index, meaning the current row index, yeah? Then we will click. If row count minus 1 greater than row index is false, then we do not click anymore. Okay? I hope you understand what I'm saying. So this is the condition that we need to put in our if-then clause. If row count minus 1 greater than row index is true, then click. If row count minus 1 greater than row index is false, then we don't click. Okay? And how do we implement this condition? First, go back to Studio, right? Uh, we need to find out how many rows there are. Okay? So scroll up. Before we enter the for each row, we need to add in another activity. Okay? We need to use the find first last data row. Okay? And let's do that together. So on the activities pane here, just type in find. You'll see find first last data row. So I want to understand how many rows there are in the Excel spreadsheet. Okay? And how many what's spreadsheet am I referring to? It's the the product list Excel spreadsheet, the one with 00001 or 002, whatever, right? So I'll drag and drop the find first last data row before the for each Excel row. Okay, make sure you're dragging and dropping the find first last data row inside the use Excel file for the the orders that the order number .xlsx. Okay, and what is the source? The source is our products sheet, right? Again, it has headers, and you can just select any of the under range, meaning the range that we're reading here, any of the column. Let's say let's pick quantity, and save last row number as. We can select, click on plus, save for later use. Basically, we're defining a variable here, and I'll just type in, row count. Sorry. Okay. So I'm saving the total number of rows as row count, the variable row count. Okay. So again, drag and drop, find first last data row, select products, sheet 1, under column name, select range, quantity, right? So basically what we're doing is count how many data rows there are for this column. Since we have the same number of rows for each of the column, then you just select quantity, you can select product name, you can select unit price, whatever column you select is fine. And we're saving the total row count under a variable called row count lah. Okay. Okay, that's it. And then here, for click add item, we need to put it inside an if-then clause. So go back to your activities pane, search for if, right? You'll see that here. Drag and drop that right on top of the click activity, right? And we can now use the condition builder. Again, click on the plus, condition builder. And then what we can do is, if row count, right? And you can select how do I do this? Huh? Yeah. Select, sorry, click on the plus and then number. You can also, let's say this is empty, right? You can select, you say value row count -1. greater than product current index. Okay, again, product current index. That's our condition. Yeah. And then under what will we do if row count minus 1 greater than current index? We will do the click. So what you can do is drag and drop the click activity inside the then box. Okay, so which means we will only click on the add item button if we're not processing the last row of the Excel. All right, hopefully that was clear. Again, I'll let's delete these values so that I can show that to you again. Okay, I'll clear the value of the condition. To those that have done it already, yeah, you don't have to do it again. Uh, click on condition builder, right? Select value, click on the plus sign, say number, right? We can use a formula, use save value, row count, space -1, greater than product current index. Okay, and click save. All right, so that should be the condition, row count -1 greater than current index. So Naveen is saying he has a syntax error or compilation error on row count. Maybe you did not uh, do a uh, save value, save for later use. So you should have save for later use here, and then you select it and make sure you set the name of the variable to row count. Okay. And hopefully you'll find how to resolve your problem, Naveen. So again, some people were saying they want to see the if um, condition again. So again, I'll clear this value. If you've done it already, no need to do it again. Uh, First thing you need to do is click plus condition builder, right? For the left side of the condition, click plus number, right? And then click on plus. You should see use save value. There should be row count, right? Because you've saved this previously. Space minus space 1. Actually, the space is probably optional. But anyway, I'd like to make it look pretty. And then the right side of our condition here, I mean the what do you call this? It's you need to use the greater than condition, and then click plus, select product current index. Okay, hopefully Mohit, um, that solves your problem, or you're were able to follow on that. Okay. All right. So again, this is a um, an ability to introduce an if clause, because in this case we don't want to keep hitting add item if uh, it's already the last row that we're currently typing. Okay, and that's sort of the condition that I've managed to figure out to be able to do this simple enough for us to understand. Okay. All right. Hopefully that was useful and everyone was able to follow. And in fact, we're almost done. The only thing left is really to click the submit button, isn't it? Because once we hit the submit button, then we can uh, submit one order. Okay. So here's what I'd like you guys to do. Again, scroll up, right? Scroll up. Remember, we have this group, the grouping. So now it looks very neat, right? You only have a few boxes there, and I can see that I have, you know, enter order details, enter product list, and then maybe what I'll do is after entering all the products, I will hit submit, right? So now I can introduce another click activity, right? And indicate target on screen. I'll specify the submit button. Yeah, that will hit submit. However, I do want to to make sure that before I loop back and then process the next order, because remember our orders.xlsx has multiple orders. Uh, Before I move back and go to the URL again, enter the next order details, and enter the product associated to that order, I want to make sure that we are having the confirmation uh, that the submission was successful, right? So there is an activity called check app state, right? This allows you to check whether you're in the right page, whether you see a message that shows that successfully submitted, and so on and so forth. So just drag and drop that and put it in the workflow, right? So how do we know that the submission was successful? So what we need to do is try and submit something. So what I'd like you to do is go to the order entry page. Just fill in, there's no data validation, so don't worry. I guess as long as you put in numbers in quantity and unit price, right? Uh, so just type in whatever value. You can opt to just enter one item. You no need to put in multiple items. So again, just enter values by hand. And what I want you to do is hit the submit button as soon as you've filled in the form. Okay. All the fields are required fields, so make sure you fill in every field. Fill in a value in every field. Hit submit. And now this is actually what tells us that the submission was performed properly. You have thank you for filling out the form, right? So what I want you to do is once you see this message, go back to Studio and remember, make sure you have the check app state activity, right? And what we can do is indicate target on screen. Okay. And now you can select that particular text, right? And click confirm. So what we're doing here is we're looking for the I guess this sentence or two sentences. Thank you for filling out the form. Your response has been recorded. We're waiting it to appear, and we can do error handling, like maybe you know uh, interrupt the execution of the process or uh, send an email to someone whenever we don't see this particular message appear because something went wrong, right? So you have the ability uh, to add activities when the target appears and when it doesn't appear. For simplicity, all we want to do is wait until that message appears and then we move on already. So you can actually click toggle view to make that go away, right? Because if you don't want to do anything, when the element appears, or when the element doesn't appear, then just toggle it away and it will go, those boxes will go away as well. Okay, although it's optional. The reality is, if it looks like this or it looks like this, the behavior is the same. Okay, so that's it actually. I think we've created our automation already that will allow us to perform the data entry. What you can do is click on the save button now. Um, if you have any of the Excel files open, you close them just to be sure, because sometimes if you're editing the file, you will not be able to open it, right? Uh, and yeah, you can also close the browser if you want. And when you're ready, you can actually run this automation. Okay. So obviously, if you're not having errors, I think this Naveen is having some errors. Um, but for the rest of you who managed to follow along and have no errors, then you should be able to click on the play button to run the process. So in a few seconds, you'll see Google Chrome come up, and it's going to open the Excel files and start doing the data entry. As you can see on my screen, it's entering the data now. So there are three, I think, four items in the first order. So you'll see that four items there, then it hits submit, waits for that response to appear, and moves on. So it's going to submit basically three orders because our Excel has three orders. Okay, hopefully the automation is working for most of you. Okay, this is a third order already. That's it, done. So the automation has entered three orders successfully. So that's really, how you would develop automation using using UiPath. Um, this is, obviously one of the more simple examples, right? We do have two types of development interface. What you're seeing now is Studio X, which is the more simplified version. It's meant to help you automate, I would say, simple to medium complexity type of processes. But if you want to automate medium and highly complex processes, we recommend you go with our Studio interface. Studio is a lot more, it's more fully has all the functionality, I would say, but it does take a while longer to learn how to use it compared to Studio X. But if you have a programming background, or you're quite comfortable with your scripting, or you do have a deep technical knowledge, and you feel that you can spend some time to learn how to do RPA development, then I will suggest you take on uh, Studio as the preferred development interface for developing your robots, because that will allow you to actually develop a lot more automation and automate more complex processes. And I'd like to point out that obviously this is just the beginning of your journey in RPA. If this is the first time that you're doing RPA development, so what I encourage you to do is create an account for yourself if you haven't done so. Go to academy.uipath.com, create an account for yourself, and we offer all these online courses for free. So Studio X course, if you look for the Citizen Developer Foundation, right? This actually teaches you how to use Studio X, right? As you can see there. Yeah. If you want to use Studio, then go for the RPA Developer Foundation. This will teach you how to use Studio. And as you can see, it's a lot more exhaustive. It's 39 hours worth of content compared to 16 hours for Citizen Developer. Okay. But yeah, if if you want to pursue, you know, uh, you know, um, becoming a more proficient RPA developer, then make sure you take advantage of the free online courses available in UiPath Academy. Again, just go to academy.uipath.com. All it takes is to create an account using your personal or your work email, and you'll have access to all the online content that we have for free. And you can continue to use the community edition that you've downloaded. So I do see a number of questions. So I think we're done already. But if you have any problems, I mean, I guess the challenge that we have is really it's hard for me to look at your screen to help you debug because I can't see your screen. But since this session is being recorded, hopefully you'll have the ability to actually revisit some of the steps that we did on the screen and follow very closely so that you won't encounter any more problems. So let me go through some of the questions. Uh, can we use the Windows credential to store other system credentials such as SAP, Ariba? Yeah, actually, that's the purpose of the Windows credential store is for you to store the username and password that the robot needs to type into applications. It could be SAP, it could be Ariba, it could be a web application, and so on. Yeah, so you could use that, make use of the get username and password activity. Yeah, make use of this to store, and then once it's stored, the robot can pick it up from the Windows Credential Manager. Okay. Uh, Nitesh asks, acknowledged text could change. What may be more concrete way of confirming? So yeah, you could actually opt to, uh, you know, maybe change what exactly you're looking for. Maybe you only want to look for a specific text. You have the ability to do that here. Okay, change the text that you're checking. And there's also fuzzy logic employed, right? So that if the exact message changes, there's still a chance the robot's gonna be able to identify because it uses fuzzy logic. Okay. Or if you don't want to use the text, click on any other element. Maybe there's an icon, maybe there's a button that can identify that the submission was successful. So use those elements instead of the text. Okay. Okay, are row counts and row index reserved words? I don't think so. They're not reserved words in Studio. But obviously there will be a exclamation mark here if you use a reserved word and just change the variable name. Okay. How we can introduce a wait when it waits. So you could use the check app state, wait for an element to appear, and you can specify 30 seconds, something like that, right? You can still use the check app state activity to wait for a specific element to appear. In this case, for a maximum of 30 seconds. I'm not sure whether we brought in the wait. I know, wait for download is different. The wait for download is waiting for a download to complete. But yeah, use the check app state activity for that purpose. Yeah, Jude. Nitesh, can you show how we can send final acknowledgement after all steps are done? yeah, maybe final acknowledgement is to send an email, right? You could you know, use these activities, use desktop Outlook app, for example. So let's say after all of this is done, uh, I'd like to send an email, and then click on mail. You could say send send email, right? And you can even include attachments. Maybe you want to include the whole folder of the orders if you want, or just uh, yeah, indicate that the recipient, the subject, the body. Okay, so you have the ability to do that as well. Okay, so Jude just says thank you. So thank you as well for spending time with us. So there are other questions in the chat window. I'm gonna go through that as well. Uh, from Paulo Miranda, how do you handle forms that go to multiple pages or tabs? So yeah, so you just add click activities to navigate to the additional tabs, right? Hopefully that answers your question. Yeah, just hit the use a click activity. From Karen, just now you showed that allows to do error handling. If there's an error in particular record, it can skip and the error record. Yeah. Uh, yeah. So basically, you're asking Karen about error handling. Yes, you do have the ability to put in error handling, kind of like, whether the check app state activity or the if statement. You have the sort of what to do if the target appears, what to do if the target doesn't appear, or if the condition is true or if the condition is false. So what you can do in case of this situation, right? Uh, if I don't see thank you for filling out the form within 30 seconds, maybe what I want to do is, you know, uh, write a value in a cell, right? Something like that. Maybe in the orders file, sorry, let's say here, I'll just add, of course, I'm doing this manually, right? But you can get the robot to also add done, done, skip, and then email this to the process owner after everything is completed so that, oh, this seems to have been skipped. Let me see why the data, why the robot did not enter the data properly. Maybe because of some data issues, or maybe just because the application wasn't working at that time. And maybe this one can be handled manually. So out of, I don't know, 100 orders, maybe there will always be issues. Then instead of handling all 100 orders manually, maybe you handle 98 of them through a robot, only two manually. Okay. So you could, one very popular approach is to use the same Excel that you're using as data source and just adding a column to indicate whether that particular transaction or that particular row was processed successfully or not. Okay. Hopefully, Karen, that answers your question. Yeah, sorry, Naveen, you have some questions there about your issues. What I suggest is maybe once you receive the recording, just follow along. Uh, Yong Chun Tan, thanks for the talk. Thank you as well, Yong Chun. Is there a certificate of attendance provided in the completion of the academy? So yes, whenever you take a lesson in academy or a course in academy, there is a knowledge assessment at the end, and you will get a diploma of completion. Okay, it's an actual cert that you should be receiving as well. Okay, and if this is a diploma, it's kind of like uh, going for an accountancy major, right? When you finish university or a diploma in accountancy, you get a diploma. But if you want to be a certified accountant, you need to go for CPA, right? So we also have a certification for our so to be recognized as a certified RPA developer. It's administered though by Pearson View, so it's an actual exam that you need to sit through, right? And we have UiPath certified RPA associate and UiPath certified advanced RPA developer, right? So these are sort of the prerequisite skills that it's indicated here for both the associate and the advanced developer. So if you're interested in taking any of these certification, uh, then you actually need to go to Pearson View to schedule your exam. And for the associate exam, it's 150 US dollars. You sit for 90 minutes for that exam, and advanced RPA developer is 200. So the courses are made on available online for free, but the certification we don't offer for free. We used to offer it for free actually a long time ago, but that was just sort of a website that we develop ourselves, and you just submit a project there. Someone checks the project that you've submitted. But in this case, we've now, you know, done the same approach as what a lot of software companies do, which is to use a third party to administer the exam. So it's, you know, sort of uh, there's no potential conflict of interest. Because if you're my customer, maybe I'll give you certification just to make you feel happy so you buy more, right? But if it's a third party administering the exam, then they don't have any bias. So they will just check based on how did you do on the exam. And this one is a proctored exam. You're actually doing the exam with someone across the internet lah. There's a proctor that will monitor you. But yeah, it's for a fee, unfortunately. But fortunately, it doesn't cost that much. Yeah. All right. What else? So the others are great session. Thank you as well. Yeah, previously there's a free certification, Mr. K or Miss, I'm not sure, KL Tan. Uh, yes, it will not be available again, unfortunately. Now we will move forward to a paid certification administered by a third party. So what is the difference between Community Edition and Enterprise Edition from Balaji? So the Community Edition is something that you can use for free forever, right? I guess for as long as we're supporting the Community Edition. However, you can only use it for free for training and testing purposes. Don't go and install it on your office computer or office laptop and run automation that will help the business, because or else you will be in violation of the terms of usage that you accepted when you installed the product, right? Or when you downloaded the product. So it's meant primarily for testing and training purposes. If you're also using just the community edition, then you're not going to get support from UiPath. The only way to get support is to go to our UiPath forum or forum.uipath.com. And there are a lot of community members in the forum, including myself, that look for questions that I can help with, and I'll answer. But that's the only support that you will get. If you have an enterprise edition, which is the paid version of our product, then you can use it for uh, you know for your business, right? Run automation that will benefit the business, and you get support from UiPath, from our technical support team. So you can raise a support ticket, and we have SLAs, and someone will respond to you, help you, and so on. Okay. And you can also get help from UiPath professional services on a paid engagement to help you build the first couple of robots while your team is still learning. Because, or else, if you're using Community Edition, then our professional services team will not go and help you because it's not a paid product. But if you're using the enterprise edition, the paid product, then our professional services team and some of our partners, we have some resellers and partners in Singapore and across the region who can help you develop automation as well. So you can learn from them and the next few projects you do on your own. Okay. So yeah, Paolo again has questions around stream notifications. So if you need to, let's say after filling in something, there's a pop-up that comes out for validation. You can always use the check app state. Just add more of those to make sure that you're in the right place. And if you check app state, the pop-up is there. Look, click, introduce a click to close the pop-up. Yeah, and that's how you would, make sure your automation can continue regardless of page some, notifications popping up. Of course, what we recommend also, if you're running the robot, especially if it's a fully what we call unattended robot, a robot that runs a process without any manual intervention, make sure that uh, the computer that's being used by that robot is free from bloatware. If there's applications that are not needed, uninstall it, because those if those applications introduce pop-up that take over the whole screen, then the robot will not be able to function. And there's only a limited set of exceptions that you can handle with your automation, right? If let's say Adobe Acrobat all of a sudden pops up, do you want to upgrade Adobe Acrobat, right? Then and it's in your face, you can't make it go away. Then how will your robot handle that if you didn't account for it, right? So as much as possible, uninstall all the bloatware, switch off all automatic updates, because if it's say you're using Outlook or Excel and it does automatic update, guess what? Maybe your automation will not work if it's automatically updated. So this is some of the best practice, I would say. Uninstall any bloatware, turn off any automatic updates so you don't, all of a sudden find yourself with a malfunctioning robot. Okay. Uh, yeah, variable number of pages. How do you instruct RPA that it's the last page? So maybe you're talking about a PDF, right? So you saw the last page when it comes to the Excel row. Um, I'm not sure whether, yeah, we don't have PDF or Word. Actually, Word document maybe have. I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't look like we have any indication for a Word document that we're in the last page or slide in the last page. Yeah. So that one, if you're talking about a PDF, we actually have PDF activities in the Studio, not Studio X. So there you could actually count the number of pages. Yeah. Okay, we're 12 minutes away from 11:30. I'll go through a few more questions. Um, can the robot send WhatsApp message? Yeah, actually it can. Um, you can use the WhatsApp web or the WhatsApp desktop app. You can automate that process as well. Okay, same thing. Type into and clicks to automate sending of WhatsApp messages. And you ask as well, Annie, whether there are UiPath templates available in GitHub. Not in GitHub. We have a website called connect.uipath.com. You can search the marketplace, let's say SAP. Then it might give me some reusable artifacts that I can use. Yeah. But these artifacts, though, are for Studio, not Studio X. Yeah. A lot of the artifacts, these are shared by UiPathers, shared by UiPath partners, shared by RPA enthusiasts. So there's, I don't know, 500 plus already, I think, components that are available. Just do a search if there's anything that you need, and hopefully one of the available templates would be something useful to you. Okay. Again, go to connect.uipath.com. Under Marketplace, you'll be able to see all the components that's been shared by yeah, Uipathers, business partners, technology partners, and the community. All right. Can that robot still work when there are apps running in the background? Yeah, certainly. As you can see here, I have a number of apps that were running in the background as well, and they continue to work. I mean, the robot continues to work despite having those. One of the things that you shouldn't be doing is interfering with the robot, though, right? Make sure the robot has the ability to take over the controls of the keyboard and the mouse, right? There are, of course, background activities like, for example, open the Excel, take data from first two columns on sheet one, put it in sheet two, take open another Excel, take the first three columns, put it in sheet two on the first Excel. Those are activities that can run in the background. So it doesn't take over your keyboard and mouse. So in fact, you can actually do something else while the robot's doing that. But if it's typically like form filling and typing and clicking, preferably you leave the robot to do its thing. However, we have introduced what we call picture-in-picture mode, which means you can run automation in the background. So I'll show you that. And if you're again, we did not go through this, but this is what we call the UiPath assistant, right? And if let's say I want to run an order entry process, I can opt to say start in PIP. PIP is picture in picture. So basically, it in a way creates a separate Windows session, as you can see there, right? This is a Windows session on on the same laptop that I'm using, right? And it should launch the automation, which is to launch Google Chrome, go to that web page, and then it will type the data lah, right? If it works. I haven't tried this, but again, this is yeah, it cannot read the file unfortunately. I think I need to make some modifications to my robot. But it's in a way, let's say the robot's running, right? Let's just pretend it did not encounter an issue, but I can minimize that robot and just deal with other things. Let's say I'm making a PowerPoint presentation while the robot's running. So we have that picture-in-picture capability. Okay. All right. Hopefully that answers the question. Yeah. So Balaji, can it? Sorry, Nitesh. Which naming convention is recommended for variables or references? Again, just we don't have any naming convention. It doesn't require you to follow a naming convention, but it's good to have a naming convention. So something descriptive. You can do camel case. You can do Pascal case. You can just do with all caps, all lowercase. Up to you. But the most important convention is to make it descriptive. Yeah. Hopefully I answered that question, Nitesh. Balaji, can robot jump across multiple apps? Yeah, in this case, we only use one app, Chrome and Excel, right? But if you want, it can actually you can have multiple use application, and it can jump. Let's say open a browser, go to SAP GUI, do something there, go back to the browser, do something in the browser. Certainly, that can be done. So, yeah, Paolo, you ask, is there a way to sort of just stop the execution of the automation, do do what's necessary to help the robot, and then let the robot continue? There is a way to do that, but you need to program it to the system as well. Like maybe put in a message box. Click OK if you fix it already. You hit OK, the robot repeats the previous steps, for example. So unfortunately, yeah, everything you have to program. Unless you're still in development mode lah. In development mode, when you're, let's say, still building your automation and you click on the run button from Studio X, then yes, it will stop at the specific point where it encountered a problem, and then you have the ability, oh, because my Excel, let's take one example actually. Let's open this up and I'll enable editing. Actually, I think editing is enabled on this Excel spreadsheet, and I'll run my automation, I think it will, sorry, there's a validation error. Yeah, because I have the use the Outlook there. So I'll run this again. I think it's not going to be able to open the Excel, right? It will launch the browser, then open the Excel because it's being used at the moment. Oh, actually, it's sorry. Yeah, it's able to read the Excel. But anyway, if there was sort of some, error or interruption, it will actually pause. And yeah, let's say we kill this. Oh, I didn't. Yeah, yeah. Notice I killed the Chrome, and it's not able to find the text field quantity. I can retry, skip item, or stop. Right. So maybe I'll fix by going back to that URL and clicking retry. So you have the ability to retry a certain step that failed. Yeah. Okay. This is probably the last one. Nitesh was asking any reason why you didn't mention about bot scheduler. So yeah, we do have the ability to schedule automation to run without any manual intervention, and that would require the component I was referring to earlier as orchestrator, right? So orchestrator is a server-side application, or it could be a cloud-based application as well, uh, where you publish your automation, and then you then specify, okay, how often will this particular automation run, and which robot will it run on? So sorry, Nitesh, if I'm not able to elaborate further, because the whole point of this was just to give everyone an experience in developing RPA. But if you go to our academy courses, then there should be, a topic that will cover how to use our orchestrator for scheduling. Okay. So we have 3 minutes left until 11:30. Does anyone from SES, Camila or King Ho, do you have any final words before we end the call?
Oh, thanks, Matthew. Yes, King Ho will be saying a few words later. So is this the end of the session already?
Yes, it is. It is the end.
It is. Okay. Thanks so much, Matthew.
Of course,
Let me
it's my
see.
pleasure.
We believe this session has been very informative, and I believe the participants have learned a lot. And we hope you could, all of you could share with us your feedback. So after Matthew, you have finished sharing your screen, right? Then you'll be
Yeah.
able to see my QR code, so that yes, for the participants to scan and then share with us your feedback. This year we have actually, this is a second run of the session, because the one in January was really overwhelming response, and we're glad that Matthew from Uipath agreed to come again to do his sharing of the workshop on RPA. So let me hand over the time to King Ho. He will be doing the closing. King Ho, over to you. Oh dear, where is King Ho? King Ho,
Hi, Camila. Sorry,
yes.
some problem with the mic, so I
Yeah,
was
sure.
not able to
Thank
answer
you.
again. Yes. So thank you everyone for your time and for staying with us for such a long session. I believe it's probably one of the longest webinars we have, but I thought it was quite interesting. I mean, the things that Matthew shared to me was a very good insight, and I always share with my friends, including also my wife, that sometimes RPA is interesting, because if you are somebody who like to tweak things at home, it could be a nice thing for you to do on your own personal kind of things that you do at a computer. For example, if you like to read a lot of news, or you like to catch up on your favorite, maybe your favorite fan or your favorite singer, you can create RPA programs that crawl the net for news and for pictures and stuff. I mean, something as simple as that could be useful, and I always appreciate, that we can run such a session. So besides that, this year, unfortunately, due to the COVID situation, we are not able to do some of the things that we were planning to, which was focused largely on really the largely focus on the visits that we were planning to some areas where we look at AI and other technology in use. However, we will be running a series of like a fireside chat that we hope to roll out pretty soon, at least covering till the end of the year, and we hope to share insights from some of these leaders in various industries about how they have been managing the virus situation. Of course, that theme can be a little bit overused, but we wanted to highlight the use of AI in those instances. So we hope to get your participation as well, and hope you can continue to join us and continue to support us.
Mhm.
Yes, Camilla, back to you.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much, King Ho. Okay, so we have come to the end of the session, and we will appreciate feedback from how is the session, how is our trainer, Mr. Matthew. He's actually very good looking. And we hope that, you have really bring something back, to be able to practice, because it's supposed to be really a hands-on workshop, for you. So as to whether there'll be a rerun, I know there are some questions posed. We say maybe, but because it's the second time we're doing it this year, so we don't want to trouble Mr. Matthew too much. We may consider, maybe in future it may be a slightly different session. So anyway, you share with us your feedback, and then we'll definitely take into consideration. Okay, thank you very much, Matthew, Ryan
Yep.
from Uipath, and then we hope to maybe meet each other in person sometime next year. Okay, so all
Yeah.
the best to all of you, and have a good day ahead. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.